Bradley Braddock Brady, apparently my mom liked alliteration, known as Brad to all my friends and coworkers and any man who doesn't think he can beat the crap out of me. The ding facts relevant to this story are that my senior year of high school, I was a state heavyweight wrestling champion and went to college on a wrestling scholarship. However, my freshman year at the state university, I grew 10 centimeters and gained 11 pounds, so I no longer had a realistic opportunity to wrestle at bantamweight in college. The maximum bantamweight weight in college is 90 pounds, which is only 1.5 pounds more than I had in high school. I even had trouble making weight in high school when I was naturally 11 pounds lighter. At 190 centimeters tall and 105 pounds in college, I was the lightest heavyweight around. After 12 years of competing at heavyweight, I quit wrestling and graduated with honors from business school and took basic civil engineering courses, an unusual combination. I am now as tall as I was in college and work as a construction supervisor on large construction projects. Dislike doing physical labor in addition to brain work, and I find it both intimidating and morale-boosting when virtually all of my male coworkers know that I'm stronger than almost all of them and not afraid to get my hands dirty. At the beginning of this story, Melissa Minton had been my wife for 5 years. We got married the year after I graduated from college. Nah didn't take my last name when we married, which didn't matter much to me. Alyssa is a large, strong-willed, independent, intelligent, successful woman who is sexy as hell and knows it. Works as a high-level financial analyst. James Jimmy Walters was my best friend in high school, and he was my age. His senior year of high school, he placed second in the state in wrestling at 75 pounds. Went to a small college on a wrestling scholarship, wrestled there all 4 years, and earned a degree in business administration. We remained close despite attending different colleges, texting daily, calling weekly on the phone, and constantly doing things together on vacations. Even after we graduated, even though I moved from our hometown to a city 600 kilometers away, we communicated weekly and met, often with our wives after we were both married, at least twice a year. Jimmy left the family business about a year after we married, much to their dismay, and began working as a salesman for high-tech products, eventually serving a 4-state area. Arlene Walters, née Simpson, had been Jimmy's wife for about 3 years at the time this story began. Arlene is petite, kind, pretty, intelligent, and slender. Yet in personality, she is the exact opposite of Melissa. Nah is insecure, doesn't realize how attractive she is, and has a weak will. She worked as a teller at a bank. I know that Jimmy's trip was hard on Charlene because she was so devoted to Jimmy and dependent on him, but several times Jimmy enthusiastically told me, "The sex at the reunion when I get home will justify it all." Has always loathed Jimmy's family, his 2 older brothers, Billy and Bobby. Their family apparently loves nicknames ending in I, bullied everyone they could. Fortunately, they were only about 75 pounds, so they couldn't bully everyone. And they didn't even try to bully me because at 14, I was bigger than they were. Jimmy's father-in-law, Jake, is a total jerk, and his mother, Jean, is probably the meanest woman I've ever met. I could never understand how a really nice, tactful, disposable, popular, intelligent guy like Jimmy could have been born into such a company of assholes. I always wondered how Charlene could live with them as if they were her relatives. From my conversations with Jimmy, it was clear to me that he had stopped working in the family business because he was fed up with his family and especially the way they treated Charlene. Melissa seemed to like Jimmy, or at least she didn't dislike him, and although she was polite to Charlene, she had no respect for her because she was too weak for her, given Melissa's strong character. Alyssa was close to her family, especially her father, who was a successful businessman in the town we lived in. The father respected me but never really loved me because I stood up to him and couldn't stand the crap he seemed to like to take out on everyone around him except Melissa. Charlene didn't have a local family, and her parents are just as disinclined to be confrontational as herself. Didn't really like Charlene from the moment I met her, and she seemed to really like me. Jimmy told me several times that he was happy that his best longtime friend and his wife were getting along so well. I fell in love with Melissa not only because of her looks, but also because she is a strong, independent person. Growing up, I always liked strong women, or at least I thought I did. Sex with her was always good. But I found that it was best when I let her lead physically, because in that situation she seemed to enjoy it more and also cared more about my pleasure. However, as our married life progressed, I found that this particular strong-willed woman, I believe this is not true of everyone or even most people, prioritized herself, then her work, and then me. Then she had little patience for people who she felt did not meet her standards. Was also not as accommodating in the frequency of sexual encounters as I would have liked, but if I ever turned her down, I would have to pay dearly. Stiflingly busy with work, trying to confront Melissa as often as possible as well as getting her into bed, and generally being a balanced guy, I never seriously questioned how happy I was in life. One amazing story changed that. Thursday around 4:30 in the afternoon, I got a call on my cell phone at work. I only answered it because the caller ID said it was Jimmy's landline, but it wasn't Jimmy. It wasn't Jimmy. It was Charlene's mom. "Hi, Brad," came a voice in my earpiece that I didn't immediately recognize. "Oh, it's Brad. CT, is it?" I said. This is, Cindy Simpson is Charlene's mom. We met once or twice." "Hi, Cindy. I remember you," I replied politely, trying to figure out why she would want to call me, especially from Jimmy's landline. "Red, I've got some bad news. JD, I've got some bad news. Jimmy was killed in a car accident in another state last night after visiting a client, Shaw, and she's afraid of her husband's relatives. Could you, go to visit and help Charlene get things in order to fulfill Jimmy's will?" Cindy asked. "Well, when?" I was overcome with a sense of primitive shock. In fact, it made me exhale quickly because I'd never experienced anything like it before. I got my clarity back when Cindy asked, "Are you still here, Brad?" Sorry, Cindy, I am. I was just thinking about how fast I could get there. Tell Charlene. I'll be there tomorrow afternoon at the latest," I said. "Thank you very much, Brad. She'll be very happy," Cindy replied. And then we both broke off the conversation. I suddenly had a clarity of thought that I'd never had before. I immediately trumpeted the construction site, summoning all the employees, and once they were all assembled 15 minutes later, I laid it all out in front of them. I'm probably going to be gone for the next week or so because of a family emergency. I'm in charge. I'm telling him right now in front of you guys and gals that when I return, he must report to me any careless behavior, any uncooperative behavior, and any attitude. I can guarantee you that if I get a report on anyone, your ass will be in danger. Ace on my desk is a realistic schedule of what needs to be completed in the next 10 days, and unless there's a hurricane or earthquake, you'd better get everything done when I get back. Any questions? I did. I bossed a team of 50 people, looking each one in the eye and repeated, "There are questions," 5 or 6 times. Everyone shook their heads negatively. "If you'll all be good boys and girls, there will be pizza and beer on me when I get back. On the work is done today, pack your bags," I said, turned around and left. On the way home, I called the owner of the construction company. He'd been a bit of a prickly man. He could often be prickly and liked to pose. However, he was basically a decent guy when it came down to it. Me. He was the only one in the company who called him by his first name, Ka. Once his secretary got him on the phone, I got straight to the point. "Tom, I have an emergency and will be away for a week to 10 days. We are well underway on the project, and I have made it clear to Jason and the rest of the team that they will work on schedule until I return, or they will have to pay the price." "Isn't this a bad time for a project?" Tom asked. "Actually, it's a good time. We're 13 days ahead of the actual schedule. The schedule I have on my bulletin board. I made up myself so there's room to maneuver. KR. Besides, it's really important to me," I replied. All well," he started. "Oh, stop it. I'm not asking your permission. You're the boss. Big boss. But I've been a model employee and you need me. I'm only stinking up your ass to tell you what's going on. You have only one choice. Say, I hope it works out for you, or fire me, I parried, probably a little louder and sharper than I intended. Par. After about 10 seconds, Tom said, "Hope it works out for you, Brad, and let me know when you get back." "I will, and contact Jason on the phone every morning, so if you need to reach me, tell him and I'll call you back." And that's the end of the conversation. Isa didn't really like the situation when I told her this, after my suitcase was packed and my plane ticket booked for the next morning, when she got home from work. He started reprimanding me, saying something about Charlene needing to work up the courage to deal with her own problems, which pissed me the hell off. I pissed off. Why the hell would you start criticizing Charlene when her husband just died and when you don't know the Jimmy family like I? I'm going to stay as long as it takes. And you don't like it, get over it, I growled. Ho! And I've had to put Melissa in her place more than once in the past. I've never done it so forcefully. He prudently backed off. Okay. Ho, don't get your panties in a bunch, was her soft reply. I know how much Jimmy meant to you, and that you want to do right by him. I'll write him, Mo. The approach softened immediately. Thank you. I appreciate that, I said. Let's have dinner at Charlie's, her favorite casual restaurant, which she knew I only tolerated because she liked it. Melissa had given me a very energetic, even assertive goodbye sex session the night before. Coeviously, she was in charge, but like I said, when she was, she tried her best to pleasure me, so I wasn't complaining. I got to Charlene's house in my rental car around 1 o'clock in the afternoon. The next day was worse than I thought. Cindy was in some shock, and Charlene was crying not only because of Jimmy's untimely death, but because his bully brothers Billy and Bobby were there, blaming her for his death because he was traveling for a job she wanted him to get, and because of that, he had to leave the family business. They demanded that she leave, that she show them a copy of the will. She showed them a copy of the will when they returned that same evening. They touched her with their hands. Shook Charlene in their arms until she cried, assuring her and Cindy that I would take care of everything and they had nothing to fear from the Walters family. Charlene went to take a nap. She'd been up all night. I talked to Cindy and assured her that I had everything under control and she could go home to her critically ill husband, as if Jimmy's death wasn't enough. Cindy's husband's husband, and Cindy's father, Charlene, had just been diagnosed with cancer, although it had been spotted at an early stage. She thanked me profusely and left. I got up around 5 p.m. By that time, I'd gone through all the paperwork. I went through all of Jimmy's papers and was pleased to be co-executor of his will with Charlene. Jimmy realized she'd need his help. I did. He was also pleased that his company had taken out a $1 million key employee life insurance policy on him, payable to them, and a $750,000 life insurance policy payable to Charlene. After I fed Charlene, she gave me more details about her first meeting with the Walters assholes. I assured her that there would be no problem when they returned and changed into hiking boots, loose pants, and a tight shirt, and pulled on thick gloves. Why are you dressed like that? Charlene asked, a little puzzled. Woof, you can do it, I said, smiling. ATI, keep your iPhone ready. If the Walters come back, I'll be there. The Walters are coming back, and I want you to videotape what happens. Charlene and I were watching something. Charlene was going through some papers when the Walterses burst into the house around 6 p.m. They didn't even knock. The whole family was there. Billy, Bobby, Jake, and Jean. I'm you. He sprang to his full height, clenched his fists, and growled, "What the hell are you doing here? Wow, what the hell are you assholes doing here? And trespassing on someone else's property without even bothering to knock?" Them. They were a little taken aback, but since they were together, Billy showed some bravado and said, "This is not your business, Brad. None of your business, Brad. Back off, and we need to see Jimmy's files." You're gonna back off, Billy. Me and Charlene are with you. The Charlenes are co-executors of Jimmy's will, and we don't need your help. I'm telling you, for the second and last time, Uber. Get out of here, I growled. We're not leaving until we get what we want, said an energetic Bobby. walking quickly toward me and shoving me aside, or at least trying to. How? As soon as he made first contact, I elbowed him in the chin. It was probably the hardest blow I'd ever thrown at anyone in my life. By the time I got to him, I'd hit him in the chin. By the time he hit the floor, he was unconscious. Bill dumbly swung, and I, blocking his pathetic blow, grabbed his arm, stepped over it, and broke it at the elbow. Cogged! Billy fell to his knees, screaming in pain, and I turned to Jake and Jean. You'll be out of here in a minute, or I'll throw you out. I ain't. Because I know Angry Jean wanted to say something, but she held her tongue. She helped Billy out, and Jake dragged Bobby until he woke up and then helped him up and out. Cogged. I turned around to look at Charlene. She was pale as a sheet, but was holding her iPhone in her hand as instructed. Ochev. She had recorded the entire incident, alone. After the door closed, a smile appeared on her face for the first time during the visit, and she said, "Thank you, Brad. Sibo, Brad," and gave me a hug. Prim. For nearly half an hour later, there was a knock at the door. I opened it. It was two of our city's finest police officers. A man and a woman. The man and the woman. The policeman, Roland Hooper. I knew well from high school. He was the star defensive end of our football team. He was the star defensive back on our soccer team, an all-state defensive back, and a year older than I. I'd a mediocre halfback, but when I played with Roland, he looked the part. 1. When Roland graduated, I was given someone else, and his replacement was just as mediocre as I was. PP! Hey, Brad! Long time no see! He greeted me in his deep baritone. Roland. And, I grinned. You're a looker, I replied, and we gave each other a manly hug. You look like you've lost weight since we were in high school, I chuckled. I don't need to be 130 pounds in this job. I'm still 110 pounds. And I've never felt better, he chuckled back. You look bigger than you did in high school. Yeah, I grew 10 centimeters in college. We chatted for a few more minutes, then he introduced me to his partner. Hey, this is my partner, Corporal Judy Getty, he said. Pi, it's nice to meet you, Judy and I said, shaking hands. Had a manly grip. She was a pretty girl. She looked good in her police uniform, but she was also, no doubt, tough. I hope Roland is treating you well, I grinned. And he's not. I'm going to kick his ass, she replied with a smirk, causing Roland to laugh out loud. I didn't know anyone who could kick Roland's ass. Look, Brad, we're not here to make small talk. We're here because Walters is here. It's because the Walters are insisting on filing an assault complaint against you, so I want to hear you out. I need to do my job, I said. You need to do your job, Roland said, now serious. Company. Sure, do it. Zaho, Roland, and Judy, I said, opening the door. IPR. I gave them to Charlene, asked her to tell them about her first meeting with Billy and Bobby, and then told them in detail what had happened. Charl N confirmed it, and then I showed them the video from her iPhone. You know what bullies Billy and Bobby were in high school. And except for the fact that they both gained 11 pounds of ugly fat each, they haven't changed a bit, I told Roland. This caused him to laugh. That got him another loud laugh. Charl. N emailed the video to Judy, and as they were leaving, Roland said to me, I'll make sure the sergeant tells them they have to stay away from Charlene, period. I can assure you that no assault charges will be filed unless you want to file them yourself. Spup. I've had enough of their humiliation, Roland. Me. You need to press your own charges, I replied, giving him another manly hug, and then I said, I'm not going to press charges. Nice to meet you, Judy, and good luck holding up the best defense in state history, as they walked away, to another rolling laugh from Roland and a chuckle from Judy. Bye. Roland and Judy were at her house. Charlene was holding herself normally, but as soon as they left, she broke down again. I OB, and then I held her while we talked, mostly about the good times we'd had with Jimmy. Not at the we sang our hearts out as it was about 11 p.m. and her eyelids got heavy. Lynn, I think you need some sleep. Okay, but Red, I have a big favor to ask of you. You're gonna sleep with me tonight. Will you sleep with me tonight? I'll sleep with you. 100. No, I can't. Be alone. You before she finally cried, "Naive." Mom? It wasn't really what I wanted, but I really feared for her mental health and thought it was better than going to the doctor or the emergency room if she had a nervous breakdown. And we showered in separate bathrooms, and I put on a clean t-shirt and boxers to sleep in because I don't even have pajamas, so I couldn't bring her with me. I caught a glimpse of Charlene's naked body as she put on her old nightgown in the master bathroom. Charl N always dressed conservatively, and I'd never even seen her in a one-piece bathing suit. Though I thought she had a beautiful body, I wasn't sure, until I caught a glimpse of it. Her T-Lo was more than beautiful. It was spectacular. Cog. We were pressed against each other in bed, Charlene's head resting on my shoulder, and she murmured, "Pain. Thanks for coming, Brad. Jimmy said that if anything happened to him, you would take care of me, and I really, really appreciate it." "I'm glad. Help, and I'll take good care of you," I mumbled back. I had a strange feeling. I felt like a member of the Justice League. Protecting the world from evil. And I cared for Charlene more than I ever had before in my life. I was very glad when less than a minute later Charlene snored softly. She must have been exhausted emotionally and physically. I, too, must have been exhausted. But B, too, because that was the last thing on my mind until 8 a.m. the next morning. I popped. I tried to get out of bed without waking Charlene, but she woke up, smiled at me, and said, "Saved by the storm. Brad, I'm on it. I got a really good night's sleep, and it's only because of your love." Love? I thought I didn't mean it. I kissed her on the forehead the next day. It had been a busy day. We had to go to the airport to pick up Jim's body. I had to go to the airport to pick up Jimmy's body. I didn't let Charlene identify the body. I had to go to the airport to pick up Jimmy's body. I was glad I didn't let that happen. Hell for not letting that happen. Jimmy had been badly mutilated in the accident, but it was clear that it was him. Ostato. We spent the day making preparations for his cremation, according to his will, and turning his ashes into a diamond in Charlene's memory, as well as preliminary preparations for a celebratory service to mark his death, also according to his will. I woke up, I made sure that Charlene was properly fed during the day, put her down for an hour nap while I made some preparations, and we both took phone calls and house calls from Jimmy's many friends and well-wishers, while as she was napping, I called Jean Walters, Jimmy's mom. "Jean, it's Brad. I need but to talk to you about Jimmy's service." I began before she snidely said, "We're his family, and we're going to organize a service." "Jean, figure it the hell out," I yelled into the phone. "Agreed. His will says Charlene and I are in charge of this place, not you bunch of assholes," I called. "To do you the courtesy of letting you know when and where the funeral will be held. You don't have anything to say about it. I have nothing but good things to say about it. You bunch of jackals will behave respectfully when you arrive, or you'll be thrown out. I'll have security there. I will be guarded. I'm clear I'll be there? During." The phone was silent for several seconds, only that after seeing one of her sons passed out and the other one's arm broken, she obviously didn't want to contact me. "Okay. Oh, I understand," she replied in the gentlest tone I had ever heard from her. I told her when and where. I did. That one of the family members could speak up if they wanted to, but it was best that the conversation not include any acrimony toward anyone. Nevero. But she thanked me and said she would make a little speech, if you and Charlene don't mind. I told her I would, and told her I would email her a draft agenda, got her email address, and disconnected. I have tried twice without success. I tried unsuccessfully to call Melissa, but I left her detailed messages, of course. As I had promised Tom, I called Jason every morning, and everything went smoothly. Although during the day, Charlene felt fine. Around 10 p.m., she lost her temper. After I comforted her for about an hour, she asked me to sleep with her again. We did the same procedure as the night before, and I again berated myself for glimpsing her naked body just before she went to bed. And sleep. It was like we were off, emotional, and physically exhausted, and dreaming. I was overwhelmed by that feeling of protectiveness towards Charlene that had gripped me just before I fell asleep. However, that night was not like the night before. I woke up. I woke up in the middle of the night from a very pleasant dream, but it wasn't a dream. Nearby, there was a dim light burning on the bed, and when I looked down to where the pleasure was coming from, I saw a naked Charlene. By the light and her position, I got a good look at her breasts. Before she could pull away from me, she stopped, pressed herself against me, and said with tears in her eyes, "Brad, I need so desperately to be loved. I'm drowning, and I can't deal with my feelings. Please, make love to me and to me." There was no conscious thought, just a reaction, as I threw off my t-shirt and finished taking off my half-removed boxers. The look she threw at me was adorable. "Portia Oyster, be gentle," she murmured. "Take good care of me." "When?" As we lay side by side, I was overcome with a sense of euphoria like I had never felt before. Like Boo. I'd just saved the world from demons, even though I'd actually cheated on Melissa for the first time in my life. The realization of my betrayal was fleeting when Charlene tearfully stroked my cheek and whispered, "Saved me." "Oh my God, Brad, you have no idea how much I needed this. Please, don't feel any guilt or resentment toward me, please. Brad, do whatever you want with me. I'm yours, and you can do anything you want to me." That day, my mind was a mess for a while. I've been saving up. I got Melissa on the phone and hoped it didn't sound too guilty. When talked to her, I could hear a strange note in her voice that I couldn't identify, though she seemed unusually nice. Afterward, Ogo. As Charlene and I had worked most of the morning making service arrangements, contacting Jimmy's life insurance companies, and taking well-wishers, it was obvious that she was tired and needed a nap. Pavern. As she turned to go to her bedroom, she kissed me lightly on the lips and repeated what she had said last night. Or was it this morning? "I'm yours, and you can use me. I am, and you can use me however you want." I followed her into her bedroom. Helped her undress, and then slept with her. Actually, I have to fix that. I didn't, and I ate her, and I made love to her. I ate her. I asked Melissa for a job, but she said no. Too busy. By luck. And coincidentally, both Roland and Judy were off duty on the day Jimmy was serving, so I hired them for security. Hire turned out to be an inappropriate word because they both refused the compensation I was trying to pay them, even though I transferred twice that amount to the Boys and Girls Police Club on their behalf. Walters's. Billy, with his arm in a cast, and Bobby with dark glasses due to the effects of a concussion, behaved themselves. Actually, in fact, Jean's short speech at the service was the most innocuous thing I've ever heard her say. The hall was... It was because virtually everyone who knew Jimmy loved him. Charlene's. Things weren't going well. Basically, she was on pins and needles the whole time, muttering to herself, "I loved you so much. I loved you, Jimmy." During the... Charlene's reception came around, and she was able to talk almost normally to all the well-wishers, even the Walls. I promised Jean I'd talk to her. I'll Jean to talk to her a few days later and show her Jimmy's will, and she actually thanked me and acted like a normal person. When Charlene and I got home from the service, we collapsed into bed, and then we did what we had been doing for the past 4 days, at least twice a day. We made love. I stayed for 2 more days to make sure everything was okay. On the last. The night before I left, Charlene got very serious. "Brad, I'm not ashamed that I seduced you into cheating on Melissa. Only my all-consuming grief for you. It was my overwhelming grief and selfishness that made me do it. Please. Don't think badly of me, I promise, to leave you alone. However, I'd be remiss if I didn't tell you that I've enjoyed every second of this process. I'm more excited than I've ever been in my life, even with Jimmy. You did a great job. Al did a great job pretending to love me, and Jimmy was right in telling me that you would take good care of me. Now, I'll be strong, and I won't cry anymore." I looked in her eyes for at least a full minute. Then I just said, he said, I didn't fake it, and made love to her again. The look of gratitude, Longing and flirtatiousness she threw at me as I walked out her door and turned around to look at her was imprinted on my brain. While I was Al to the airport and then flying home, I had a real guilt problem. I cheated, but more than that, I fell in love. Full in Charlene's unconditional consent, her loving passion, and the fact that our genitals seemed made for each other resulted in the most satisfying, both emotionally and physically, sexual encounters of my life. In addition, I had a desire to protect her, a desire to protect her that I had never had before. The desire to protect her that I felt for her was the most pleasurable non-sexual feeling I had ever experienced. I didn't know exactly what I was going to do, but felt I had to tell Melissa and let things take their course. I was annoyed that she couldn't pick me up at the airport, but as it turned out, it was okay because on the cab ride home and the hour I waited before she arrived, I was able to gather my thoughts. Isa arrived home. She greeted me warmly, albeit a little tentatively. This first, I didn't like her comment after we kissed. "Well, what's up? What's up with the little nerd?" I held back. I tried not to snap at her, but she could see the anger in my eyes. "Charlene, not a wuss. She's just an addict who misses Jimmy terribly, and she's doing as well as could be expected," I replied. "Oh, X. Okay, I hope you were able to help her," Melissa replied, trying to make up for her tactless comment. I told Melissa about the favor and a few other details, but not about making love to Charlene almost 24 times. About that. We'll get to that later. When there was a lull, I said, "Come on, let's sit in the living room for a minute." I noticed the wariness in Melissa's eyes. I wasn't sure why exactly, because I didn't think my words sounded ominous. I started by saying, "During the time I've been here," I said. I learned something interesting during my visit. Then I wanted to tell her as gently and nonchalantly as possible about how much I enjoyed being a protector, about Charlene's dependence on me, and eventually confess to having sex with her and see what Melissa and I would do next. As it turned out, my choice of opening words led to a completely different and unexpected conversation. After that. As we sat down and I slowly said with a grimace on my face, I learned something interesting during my visit. I didn't have a chance to say anything else before she blurted out excitedly, "What did you say? It's not true VDA?" Although I was. Stunned by this, for some reason my mind suddenly cleared, and I'm sure it was helped by what was either a blank stare or a deep, thoughtful expression on my face. "After a PA," she continued nervously, "I'm having a didn't have sex with John Peters. Why would I even think that my loving wife would have sex with John Peters while I was attending a memorial service for my deceased best friend? Ask me." And my question was full of sarcasm. Well, that asshole threatened to call you and tell you everything if I refused to sleep with him. He had a cell phone number." "It was your cell phone number," she blurted out, clasping her hands that looked like they had alarmingly sweaty palms. "So that means, are the pictures lying?" Snidely, I replied. At one end of the few moments in our entire relationship, Melissa seemed to be at a loss for words. She shut the "when" she opened her face with her hands, her breathing became shallow and noisy, opened her face, then blushed. "Listen, I know a lot of things," I said sternly, even though I had no idea about anything at that moment. I led her down a path of primroses. The only chance you have is to come clean and right away. To me, and what, to say, she mumbled. "Okay, have it your way. As soon as I'll finish the laundry, I'll pack," I bluffed, getting up and heading for the exit of the room. No, NT, P, it's raining," she stammered, grabbing my arm. "Sit down, please. I'll tell you I sat down, and the irony of the situation. I sat down, and the irony of the situation. The irony of a situation where I had planned to tell her that I cheated on her, and now I would probably hear that she did it, caused confusion in my brain. You have to realize from the beginning that I love you unconditionally, I know. But sometimes it seems like I put myself and my work first. Sometimes. I laughed. I asked myself, but I didn't say anything. I let her go on. I do. I love you so much. I couldn't explain how it happened, but the day after you left, I went out with some guys from my office and drank too much. The next morning, I woke up in John Peter's bed. I can explain why I stayed with him the rest of the day and that night too. I think it was because you were gone, and I figured if I sinned once, a couple more times wouldn't make a difference. Yes, she did. That's what she said, although I'm not one for talking, am I? Then she continued, wringing her hands and looking like she was about to cry. As if. Whatever. The second night, when I wanted to go home, he got angry and said he was going to call you and tell you I was his whore and showed me your cell phone number, which he must have taken from my phone while I was sleeping. At that M meant I told him to hell and left. I didn't think he would actually tell you because he knows how big and tough you are, she said before covering her face again. I sat there, shell-shocked. It's very hard to digest this information. I certainly wasn't going to admit it. Oh, I wasn't going to admit it now, but at the same time, I wasn't such a big shit to punish her for what she did. After I paused for a moment as she pleaded, "Say something." Nuck, he replied. That would be the only time you've ever cheated on me? After a PR? After a long pause and a concerned expression on her face, she said, yes. However, judging by the delay and the look on her face, there was no doubt that the real answer was no. I think. We should get something to eat, again at Charlie's if you want. And come back to this tomorrow, I said, standing up and holding out my hand to her. Her relief. The feeling was obvious when she sighed and stood up, shivering. In fact, I think I'm a little nervous. In fact, I think I noticed a single tear on her otherwise always unperturbed face. We both pee. We made every effort to behave normally during the meal and mostly succeeded. Once we got home, Melissa proved to be unusually amorous, so as soon as our food was digested, we headed to bed. I tried to see if I could repeat myself, to see if I could replicate the euphoria I'd felt with Charlene with Melissa. In the end, we had 2 very physically pleasurable sex sessions before we fell asleep, but the first one was almost hopeless. The first one was almost emotionally hopeless, and the second one gave me about half as much emotional satisfaction as my lovemaking with Charlene. Next. That evening, Melissa was ready to continue our conversation, but I postponed it for several reasons. I had to have some mental clarity before I could talk to her again. I BL a real internal conflict about what I was going to do next. However, but it was clear. I was going to make John Peters pay. Of course, it was at least partly hypocritical of me to want to beat the crap out of him. Of course, it was caveman-like and potentially risky on my part. Of course, I should have been more optimistic about him, especially since it was his reaction to Melissa that forced her to come clean. But and you can't grow up and pursue athletics, business, and love like I did and just forgive a misdemeanor like Peters. Thinking that the video system in my construction trailer would provide me with an alibi, showing the video from Tuesday as from Thursday, I got the information on Peter's health club schedule, which had him working out on Thursday at noon. Skip at lunch, I paid him a visit, completely changing my facial expression and clothing. Of course, I couldn't hide the fact that I had 190 centimeters and 105 kilograms in me. But I was confident that the video of my construction trailer would provide me with an alibi even if he suspected it was me. I took pity over him as he cringed and only dislocated his right shoulder rather than breaking his arm at the elbow, which was my original plan. In his GL, recognition flashed as I growled, "You know what this is for?" "Shh, what's that for, prodigal?" "Cops, Co." He never converted, but Melissa did on Friday night after work. At first, and tried to act nonchalant, but I could feel it boiling inside her. "Guess. Who came to work today with their right arm in a sling?" she asked nonchalantly. She asked me as we ate Chinese takeout, taking a bite out of the Kung Pao chicken. I just as nonchalantly replied, "I have no idea. Who is it?" "John P. Ers," she parried, again trying to be nonchalant. "Really? Really? What's wrong with him? Has it happened? Did the husband of the woman he was sleeping with hurt him? replied I, without looking her in the eye, and immediately added, I couldn't have. Would you pass me some more beef fried rice, please? Possible. You know, she giggled as she handed me the rice, her composure beginning to wane. You know, what did he say to me? He swore that he didn't call you and tell you about our sexual encounter. He swore that he didn't have the pictures, she continued as her composure began to wane. I never. Not that he told me or that he had pictures, I replied. Then to the, how did you know? She snapped, she asked. You told me, Lame, I replied, starting to really enjoy her anxiety. But I told her that I'd gotten some interesting information when I was in my hometown for Jimmy's funeral. I spit it out, and she threw down her chopsticks. I did. I discovered, that I really enjoy protecting Charlene from those around her who are trying to screw her over. I wondered if I could feel that same sense of protection for you, your guilty conscience. And once I thought I knew what you were talking about, I played along. Good and rhetorical, huh? Rhetorical, I asked with a smirk on my face that couldn't be suppressed. For only the second. For the second time since we've known each other, Melissa cried, flipped her plate over, and ran out of the kitchen. I think no sex today. I grinned to myself as I finished my kung pao. It was really good. It was cold that weekend. It was cold at home. I paid a visit to Tom, the owner. On Sunday night, my plans were to go to the kitchen, I said, grinning to myself as I made kung pao. It was really good. That evening, my plans were clear. I realized Melissa loved me in a way, but other things were actually more important to her than me or our marriage, except for the fact that Melissa was in love with me. I realized that her capacity to love was small, minuscule compared to Charlene's. I bolted. She realized that Charlene probably already loved me more than Melissa did, and that my relationship with Charlene could be a strong one for the ages. I bolted everything. I realized more that sex with Charlene was infinitely more rewarding emotionally than with Melissa, and on par with the physical, and that what Charlene made me feel could not be repeated. I again at the... And Melissa in the living room. Melissa. I'm sorry to have to say this because you have many wonderful qualities, but even before you admitted to cheating, I realized that I didn't love you as much as I did when we were married, when I should have loved you more. I get it. I don't love you the way Charlene loved Jimmy. I realized that over time we'd grow apart instead of together. I think, if you're honest with yourself, you'll realize that your feelings mirror mine. I intend to file for divorce next week because of irreconcilable differences, and try to work things out as amicably as possible. Melissa Est Oiko paused, after a long pause. After the pause, she giggled. No, so I can beg you to stay married? I calmly replied, I do, for you to accept it and move on with your life as quickly as possible. I don't dislike you, and I'm not going to divorce you because of your sexual relationship with John Peters. Her following. That was an unexpected question. Can we? We can still live together and have sex until the divorce is final? We can. Wait a month, by then. When the project I'm managing is complete, I'll leave the area and move 1,000 miles away. It seemed like. The Axis caught her off guard. You're not with... Are you thinking of going back to your hometown? No, me. There's nothing waiting for me there. I'm moving to the southeast, and I'm looking for a job as a supervisor. That's a statement. That was true, but only because Charlene was moving there too. Maybe. The most surprising thing was that my sex life with Melissa was as good as it had been before I moved. We broke up, and as peaceful as it could be. Of course, it didn't really help that she made more money than I did, so I didn't pay her alimony, nor did I ask for it, and that I sold her my share of our house for an amount that was probably only 2/3 of what it was really worth. If honestly, I think I did it to assuage my conscience for not admitting to her that I cheated on her. I acted. I got the job in the southeast right away, and there was even a small raise associated with it. Charlene P., she came to visit me, and strangely enough, the sex, love, and my sense of security seemed to increase almost weekly. Charlene Raw. She worked at a bank in our new neighborhood until I filed for divorce and she and I were married. Approximately a month after our honeymoon, we got serious about having children, and she quit her job for good when she was 7 months pregnant. Now, shh. 6 years later, we have 3 kids, and I have more love, more self-esteem, and better sex than I've ever had in my life. Sometimes I feel guilty about the death of my best friend being the epitome of eternal happiness, but then I remember what Charlene said to me the first day I arrived at her house after Jimmy's death. "Jimmy, I told her that you would take good care of me."